Chapter 1054. The appearance of the two demon cultivators, Chu Hailan and Chu Haiping, hastened the encirclement and annihilation of Poison Azura. However, although Poison Azura did not participate in the Battle of Chengling Island, he arranged the clans according to their cultivation from the inside to the outside. Their progress was not slow, but most of the Poison Azura tribes had low cultivation. As Laozu and the others ventured deeper, more and more Poison Azura of Greater Mara's level joined the fray, causing their progress to slow down. Even when Chu Hailan and Chu Haiying joined forces, they did not dare to venture deeper alone, fearing that they would be surrounded by the Poison Azura tribes. At this moment, another fiery light streaked across the sky, smashing into the Poison Azura group and exploding into a huge fireball. The Poison Azura within the range of the fireball were either killed or injured. Clouds of poisonous mist were melted by the orange-red flames. Haha, Chu Haishao. I was wondering why our competition to kill Emoluo had reached a critical juncture, yet you had slipped away. It turns out that you have come here. Could it be that you think that you can gain an advantage here, just by relying on your Emerald Sea Spirit Snake Clan's poison immunity talent? I Flame Coffin will compete with you. If I kill more Poison Azura than you, the title of the strongest of the third generation of the Overseas Demon Clan will fall on my head. A firebird descended from the sky, and another 3 fireballs flew out from its body, blasting open an empty space in the midst of the Poison Azura tribe. The firebird fell into it, and the flames on its body gradually receded, turning into a thin, tall, and handsome young man with red hair and eyebrows. He shouted at Chu Haitian, who was fighting the Poison Azura not far away. Flame Coffin. Flame Spirit Coffin. You think you're worthy of being compared to Big Brother Tsunami? Don't think I don't know that you've taken a fancy to Yen Lingqi, but she doesn't like you. In order to get rid of you, she agreed to defeat Big Brother Tsunami and take the title of the strongest of the third generation of the overseas demon race before meeting you. Her intention was to make you give up. Do you really think you can compare to Big Brother Tsunami? The Flame Spirit Coffin was so angry that it roared. A 3-foot-tall flame rose from its body, and it jumped around in the crowd of poisonous Azuras. All the poisonous Azuras that came into contact with the flame were set ablaze. The Flame Spirit Coffin scolded. Chu Hairan, you follower? Shut up. I'm going to compete with Chu Hairan, and you're not qualified to interrupt. Chu Hairan, just tell me, do you dare to compete or not? Chu Haitian's cold voice was heard. I, Chu Haitian, don't think that I can take the title of the strongest of the third-generation cultivator of the Overseas Demon Clan for sure. But no matter how useless I am, I'm still much stronger than a firebird like you. The Flame Coffin was surprisingly calm this time, and did not roar again. Instead he sneered and said, Then let's wait and see. The rash, reckless, and arrogant performance from before seemed to be a deliberate act. Many cultivators from various sects could not help but feel wary. Human cultivators had always prided themselves on being far more intelligent than other races, which was why they often had a sense of superiority and looked down on other races. In fact, a small part of the reason why humans and demons had been enemies since ancient times was also because of this. Now that they saw the scene in front of them, this kind of provocation was not something new. However, the Flame Coffin of the Fire Phoenix clan had deliberately put on a domineering performance, and then calmly and rationally changed. This was what chilled the hearts of all the human cultivators. Before the two of them could make a bet, a heavenly river descended from the sky. From the river, a giant fish that was almost 100 feet long jumped out. The pair of fins under its abdomen were almost like a pair of wings. It glided down from the sky and opened its mouth towards the group of Poison Azuras. Immediately, more than a dozen great Azuras were swallowed into its stomach. Then count me in as well. A deep voice rang out. The giant fish turned into a giant that was 3 feet tall, but he looked extremely young. Aha, Kong Qianjun is here too. Although your talent is amazing, you can use it to swallow Poison Azuras. Aren't you afraid that you'll be poisoned to death? Chu Haiwu immediately shouted. Obviously, this Kong Qianjun was also an extraordinary existence among the third-generation cultivators of the Kuan clan. Kong Qianjun chuckled. He looked quite simple and honest. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and spat out a black spring. The black spring sprayed dozens of feet away and stained the bodies of several poison azuras. Immediately, a burst of black smoke rose. The poison azuras screamed in horror as they were killed by the backlash. Good move. Since the demon friends are so interested, how about I-Chin join in? A 9-story glazed pagoda appeared in the sky. The layers of the pagoda were lit up one by one. When the highest layer was lit up, an invisible barrier expanded outwards. All the poison azuras that were pushed by the barrier were crushed into pieces. A young cultivator in his late 30s slowly descended from the sky. It was senior brother Qin from the Crystal Palace. Qin Shijun, I didn't expect you to come too. The first to speak was actually Chu Haitian. Haha, very good, very good. I didn't expect the first direct disciple of the Crystal Palace to be here. It seems that the third-generation disciple can really fight for the title of the first overseas cultivator. The flame spirit coffin was stunned at first, but then he clapped his hands and laughed. The flames on his body burned even more fiercely, as if to express the raging fighting spirit in his heart. Kong Qianjun chuckled and said, "This is going to be interesting." At this moment, a series of battle cries came from the other side of the gap in the formation. It turned out that the other group of cultivators had finally broken through Mara's blockade and killed their way to the front of the Battle of the Poison Azuras. The cultivator at the front was covered in lightning. Every poison azura that was struck by him was annihilated by the lightning before turning into a cloud of black fog. Yuan Feixiang took the lead and killed his way into the group of poison azuras. Mr. Wen, who was behind him, was nowhere to be seen. He invited them to fight from the other side. I didn't expect to see such a scene. Green Sea Snake Chu Haitian, Fire Phoenix Flame Coffin, Kuan Fish Kong Qianjun, Crystal Palace Qin Shijun. I wonder if Yuan Feixiang is qualified to compete with you? As soon as Yuan Feixiang's voice fell, he heard Qin Shijun laugh and say, "So it's Brother Yuan. I originally thought that our human clan was weak this time, and the few junior brothers of our sect did not make it to the 5 islands of the illusionary spirit. This time, I'm afraid that we will be defeated by the few fellow Taoists of the demon clan. I never thought that Brother Yuan would be here as well." Chu Haitian also said, "The descendant of the #1 aristocratic family in the Middle Mainland. What a great reputation. I hope you won't disappoint us." Flame Coffin also said loudly, "Let's have a good show." Kong Qianjun sneered and said, "So you are from the Yuan family? Well, let's have a competition today. We will let the cultivation world know that the Kuan Fish clan is the #1 lineal bloodline of Peng Daoren." Yuan Feixiang didn't take the provocation seriously. Instead, he shouted at the cultivators who had been fighting steadily on the outskirts, "Brother Zhenling, is Brother Lu here? It's such a good opportunity, but Brother Lu is just watching the show quietly. I'm afraid it's not right, isn't it?" Originally, Lu Ping and Tiankong Laozu had joined hands to suppress Poison Azura. Although the successive appearances of Chu Haitian and the others had surprised Lu Ping was confident that his cultivation was not weaker than these people. He didn't want to compete with these prominent cultivators. After all, the Zhenling sect behind Lu Ping was far from being on par with these famous sects and clans. Lu Ping didn't want to bring unnecessary trouble to his sect. However, after Yuan Feixiang called out, Lu Ping could no longer hide. Otherwise, his reputation would be ruined, and he would be despised by others. Even if Lu Ping stood out, he wouldn't be recognized by the others. Lu Ping could only face the difficulties head-on and win respect with his strength. Otherwise, Lu Ping would still end up with an undeserved reputation. Of course, if Lu Ping's strength was recognized, Lu Ping's reputation would be even greater after this battle. Yuan Feixiang's call seemed to give Lu Ping a chance to stand on equal footing with the others, but in fact, it was full of danger. One wrong move, and his reputation would be ruined. North Sea? Zhenling? Since the fall of Fei Ling sect, is there any other powerful sect in North Sea? As expected, as soon as Yuan Feixiang finished speaking, the flame spirit coffin snorted coldly. "Hehe, Zhenling Lu Tianping. I've heard a little about him. Is he up to it?" Kong Qianjuan's simple and honest smile could fool those who didn't know his background into thinking for Lu Ping's safety. After all, This competition would definitely involve them killing their way into the hinterland of Poison Azura. It was definitely a risk of life and death. The Laozu from the other sects who were advancing side by side with Jinling looked at Tiankong Laozu and Lu Ping with a mocking expression. Tiankong Laozu's expression was dark, and he didn't say a word. Lu Ping, on the other hand, smiled and nodded slightly at Tiankong Laozu. The thin water-flowing sword let out a deafening cry. Many of the adepts who were controlling their flying swords cried out in alarm. The flying swords in their hands actually felt as if they were about to lose control, when the thin water-flowing sword let out a long cry. Chu Haitian gripped the Jade Cloud sword in his hand tightly. Naturally, the Jade Cloud sword would not be intimidated by the power of the thin water-flowing sword. But it also let out a similar cry. It wasn't yielding, but it was warning. None of the Dharma adepts present were blind. Naturally, Lu Ping's sect returning swords was more than enough for him to compete with many of the third-generation elites present. Just as the thin water-flowing sword let out a sword cry, the two sword dragons that had been circling around Tiankong Laozu's wings roared into the sky. Instantly, they flew out from the wings and crashed into the group of Poison Azura. In an instant, more than 10 core forging stage Poison Azura were torn to shreds. Lu Ping followed closely behind. In the blink of an eye, he had also entered deep into the group of Poison Azura. The surrounding poisonous fog continued to gather towards him, but the golden shield around Lu Ping's body shone brighter and brighter. Since Brother Yuan has invited me, how would I dare not accept? If that was the case, then why not fight it out? Although Lu Ping kept a low profile, this did not mean that Lu Ping's heart was lacking in passion and pride. In such a situation, Lu Ping naturally had to take on the responsibility. Chapter 1055. It's you! It's you! 2 exclamations rang out one after another. The first one was filled with hostility, and the second one was filled with disbelief. These two people were none other than Chu Haitian and Chu Haijin. As soon as the thin water-flowing sword appeared, the two of them naturally recognized that the person in front of them was the mysterious cultivator Lu Jiao, who had saved Chu Haijin from the Blood Azura in the fallen secret land. However, at that time Lu Jiao was full of demonic qi. Obviously, he was a member of the demon clan. How did he become a cultivator of the North Sea Jinling now? A small part of the reason why Lu Ping had kept a low profile was that he was afraid of being recognized by the 2 green sea snakes. After all, Lu Ping had saved Chu Haijin because he had other plans. However, after being challenged by Yuan Feixiang, he could no longer care about this plan. This time, it might backfire. Lu Ping cupped his hands and said with a wry smile, "Brothers Chu, we meet again. Previously, in the fallen secret land, I used the demon-transforming bracelet to conceal my identity. I'm really sorry." Chu Haitian snorted coldly and said, "I knew that you were up to no good, but you didn't have to be so hypocritical." Chu Haijin said with a complicated expression, "In any case, Brother Lu has indeed saved my life. Even though I concealed my identity as a human, Brother Lu is still my savior." Lu Ping's smile became even more wry. 10,000 swords contend. Good move. Qin Shijun laughed and said, "I've heard that junior brother Wu highly praised Lu Daoyu. Today, I've seen that you live up to your reputation. Today's challenge will be fair. Both the human clan and the demon clan will have 3 people each. We will fight for who is stronger and who is stronger. What do you think?" The flame spirit coffin shouted, "Today's fight is only for fun. Who cares about race? Anyway, it's just this group of Poison Azuras. We can fight however we want. Why are there so many rules? You human clan cultivators are just too boring." However, Qin Shijun didn't feel offended in the slightest. Instead, he smiled and said, "Looks like I was too impulsive. Fine, we'll fight our own battles today. All I want is to be happy." As soon as he finished speaking, Kong Qianjun, who looked the most simple-minded, was the first to attack. A giant fish tail condensed in the air and swept forward. Any Poison Azura that was hit by the tail was smashed into a cloud of black mist, while those that were not hit were blown away by the strong wind generated by the fish tail. They fell towards where the others were. What Kong Qianjun did was not only to kill the enemy, but also to disturb the other competitors. It was indeed a good plan. The others all cursed him for seeming simple and honest, but in fact he was cunning. He had taken care of those poison shura that were falling from the sky, but he had already let Kong Qianjun take the initiative. Kong Qianjun laughed out loud. He dashed forward like a hurricane, heading deep into the poison Azura's territory. The others followed suit. They did not join hands with each other, fighting on their own, as they went deep into the poison Azura's territory. Lu Ping opened the way with the thin water-flowing sword. In a moment, Lu Ping had already noticed that the other 5's killing treasures were all First Tribulation Spirit treasures. Kong Qianjun had a giant fishtail fan. The Flame Spirit Coffin had a fire bead. Chu Haitian had the Blue Heaven Sword. Yuan Feixiang had a Thunder Awl, and Qin Shijun's Scimitar. Even so, the thin water-flowing sword was still as powerful as a spirit treasure in Lu Ping's hands. After the combination of the two swords, the two sword dragons circled and attacked each other, clearing the way for Lu Ping to move forward. For a moment, the 5 advanced side by side, with only Kong Qianjun slightly ahead. Facing the poison magic of the poison shura, Yuan Feixiang had a relatively easy time with her thunder and lightning magic. Chu Haitian was strolling leisurely. The flame of the Flame Spirit Coffin burned all kinds of poison magic with a sizzling sound. There was always running water flowing around Kong Qianjun's body, splashing the water that was contaminated with poison magic back at Kong Qianjun, giving him a taste of his own medicine, which helped him move forward. As for Qin Shijun, it seemed that he was completely resisting. The layers of light curtains hanging down from the 9-story glazed pagoda seemed to be endless, and no matter how many poison magic was applied on them, they could not corrode the light curtains. Lu Ping glanced at the 9-story glazed pagoda that was lit up, and a trace of doubt flashed across his mind. Then he fell into deep thought. Ever since Lu Ping combined his protective vigor qi into one, and used the myriad poison meteorite power as the main body to construct the heavenly water curtain, the power of this great protective magic seemed to have grown to the limit. However, after the battle with the poison shura, Lu Ping instinctively wanted to collect the essence of the fallen poison shura, but he suddenly found that his protective vigor qi was slowly and continuously absorbing the poisonous mist that pervaded the air. This poisonous mist was mostly made up of the essence of the poison shura and the poison magic. Lu Ping could clearly feel that the quality of the protective vigor qi had improved. Lu Ping had many ways to resist poison. Other than the protective vigor qi, he also had the dark prism poisonous fire. However, Lu Ping had left the dark prism poisonous fire for Tian Kong Laozu. With old ancestor Tian Kang's abilities, even if he could face Poison Azura's innate divine arts head-on, he would still have to expend a large amount of true essence to defend against the invasion of these divine arts. With the black prison venom fire in his hands, old ancestor Tian Kang's ability to continue fighting had undoubtedly been greatly extended. The most important thing that Lu Ping had, and also the trump card that allowed him to enter the poison shura formation unscrupulously with the others, was naturally the pool of liquid in the Golden House, that was unknown whether it was the 10,000 poison source liquid, or the 10,000 poison paste. While the protective vigor qi would only slowly absorb some of the poison mist to strengthen itself, while resisting the attack of poison magic, the space door that Lu Ping had opened on his chest had become the window through which the green stone pool unscrupulously absorbed the nearby poison mist. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Ping was moving extremely fast, perhaps a spectacular poison mist whirlpool would have formed around Lu Ping and attracted the attention of others. At this time, Lu Ping could feel that the wonder dew at the bottom of the green stone pool seemed to be changing very quickly. The wonder dew that Lu Ping had cut off a third of was being rapidly replenished by the poison shura's original essence with the help of the pool water. A howl suddenly sounded, and Lu Ping was slightly startled. In Lu Ping's mind, he could sense that the moment the howl sounded, the others also paused for a moment. A Jade Shura level poison shura? When Lu Ping raised his head to look, he saw 6 gray shadows in the poison shura formation, coming at the 6 of them from 6 different directions. It was a blood poison shura. It was obviously obeying the orders of the Jade poison shura from before. It seemed that this poison Shura group was led by a jade poison Shura. As he spoke, a blood poison Shura leaped towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping extended his hand, and a Kuei water divine lightning struck down on the blood poison Shura's head. The poison Shura tried to dodge, but it was extremely difficult to dodge such a great god art of thunder. The poison Shura kept using space god art to change its position as it let out a strange sound. Then it took out a wooden staff and pointed it at Lu Ping. Lu Ping felt a cold wind instantly invade his flesh and blood. Of all the defensive measures on his body, only the 1,000 poison meteorite vital energy seemed to have a slight effect on it. This strange power instantly spread after invading Lu Ping's body. In Lu Ping's mind, Lu Ping could sense that if this power was not stopped, the hair on his body would fall off from his skin would fall off from his muscles, and his muscles would fall off from his bones. The walls of his blood vessels were also softening, and his blood vessels seemed to have completely lost their circulation channels. Lu Ping suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. What a strange god art! 2 loud sounds that sounded like the beating of a drum came from Lu Ping's heart. The blood throughout his body flowed like a raging river, and there was even a walala sound coming from his body. Spiritual ether surged all over his body. The spiritual ether that had fused with the wonder dew and the water of thunder calamity had an extremely strong resistance and annihilation effect against any kind of poison. It blocked the strange power outside his skin. At this moment, the door of the golden house on his chest opened wide. The strange power that had spread all over Lu Ping's body was immediately absorbed by the green stone pool with extreme ease. However, when Lu Ping opened the invisible door, the poison Shura in front of him seemed to have discovered something extremely terrifying. It let out a shrill cry and turned to escape. Lu Ping seemed to have realized something. He knew that this was probably related to the liquid in the green stone pool that had seeped through the door. Naturally, he would not let it leave. He twisted his right thumb and middle finger, and a bolt of lightning shot out. The thin water-flowing sword immediately performed the seepage sword technique, forming a wall of sword light behind the poison Shura. The poison Shura panicked when he saw that his escape route was blocked. A sticky black liquid surged from the wooden staff in his hand, and he shot it at the wall of sword light. Lu Ping frowned slightly, but he did not stop it. The black liquid was nurtured in the spirit treasure. If it really came into contact with the treasure, even the treasure would be damaged and tainted. However, when the poisonous liquid seeped into the wall of sword light, the purplish-blue lightning immediately exploded in the wall of sword light. It formed a lightning net with the wall of light, blasting the black liquid into a cloud of black mist. At the same time, the sword light and lightning net flanked the poison Shura from both sides, trapping it within. Seeing that he could not escape, the poison Shura pounced at Lu Ping again. It was obvious that he was fighting with his life on the line. Lu Ping smiled faintly and pointed his finger in the air. A white ray of light shot into Poison Azura's body and froze it in midair. Then, Lu Ping flipped his hand and pushed the Poison Azura back into the sword net with the pushing wave of ocean sword skill. The sword light lightning net closed up immediately. Countless sword light fish with flashing lightning crisscrossed, and Poison Shura's shrill howl could be heard from within. Clouds of black mist and ink splashed left and right in the net, but they could not break through the sword light lightning net's restraints. Poison Shura's howl became softer and softer, and eventually disappeared. Lu Ping withdrew his swords, but there was nothing left in the sword net. They had obviously been annihilated by the lightning. Chapter 1056. After the poison Shura perished, it would also turn into essence. But unlike the other Mara Shuras, the essence of the poison Shura was also poisonous. Under certain circumstances, it was a poison that was even more difficult to deal with than the poison Shura itself. Therefore, the Dharma adepts of the various sects who were surrounding and killing the poison Shura were doing it slowly and steadily. They did not charge straight in like Lu Ping and the others, because they did not want the poison Shura to take advantage of the chaos, to rush into Chungling Island, and cause mass destruction to the low-level adepts on Chungling Island. Although they were chasing or killing the poison Shura away, they were not chasing them out of the gap in the matrix. Instead, they were trying to get them out of the matrix through the gap. If they could not chase them away, they could only kill them. After killing them, they would have to use their own powers to dissolve the poison that the poison Shura emitted after it died. With such a complicated process, the various sects and demon dharma adepts added up to nearly 30 people. But their progress was still very slow. Lu Ping killing the blood poison Shura so easily surprised everyone. Chu Haitian and Lu Ping took the lead, advancing side by side. Then, Yuan Feixiang and Qin Shijun almost simultaneously finished off their opponents and caught up, maintaining the same progress as Kong Qianjun, who was slightly behind them. The flame coffin was the last. The death of the 6 blood poison Shuras had obviously alerted the Jade Shura, hiding in the center of the poison matrix. There was a loud noise, and a thick cloud of poison mist rapidly shrank in the gap. Then 3 Jade Shuras squeezed in through the gap. After the 3 Jade Shuras squeezed into Chengling Island, they immediately pounced on Lu Ping and the others. Lu Ping and Chu Haitian intercepted 2 of them first, while Yuan Feixiang, Qin Shijun, and Kong Qianjun rushed over to fight over the other one. In the end, the 3 of them joined forces to attack the Jade Shura. Although they said they were working together, they were actually not cooperating with each other. They were just fighting on their own. But it was enough to beat the Jade Shura into a corner. A Jade Shura with a companion spiritual treasure in her hand would normally be extremely difficult to kill, even for a great practitioner. However, the 3 early Dharma adepts in front of him could not be viewed as ordinary early Dharma adepts. Even though the 3 of them were fighting individually, they were still able to force the Jade Shura to retreat. The companion spiritual treasure in her hand could only be used to block the attacks, and she could no longer fight back. The flame spirit coffin was the last one to catch up to Chu Haishao. It looked at Chu Haishao and Lu Ping, who were fighting alone, and smirked coldly at Lu Ping. Do you have a backup plan? Of course not. At least, I haven't seen a Dharma. That's a desperate move. How many times have you used it? Well, I don't think I've used it once. Even if I did, you wouldn't tell me. The 3 of them talked, and Qin Shijun's scimitar cut off one of the Jade Shura's arms, while the other 2 were busy fighting the Jade Shura. The Jade Shura screamed and turned to run. Qin Shijun and the other 2 didn't chase after her. Instead, they retreated a few dozen meters. Crack. There was a crisp sound, and Jade Shura's companion spirit treasure appeared where the 3 of them had been standing. When the companion spirit treasure cracked, the space around them was broken, but it was restored to its original state. What a shame. A spirit treasure with a space element. At that moment, Chu Haitian's green sky sword turned into a tsunami, and it stopped the other Jade Shura. The flame coffin laughed, and 7 fireballs came out of the flame coffin's body. They shot into Chu Haitian's sky and caused a huge explosion. The sky was filled with white mist. Chu Haitian waved his sleeves, and the white mist disappeared. The Jade Shura was running away, and a few pieces of it shot around, killing a dozen poison Shuras nearby. Clearly, the Jade Shura had been forced to explode her spirit treasure to block Chu Haitian and the flame coffin's spells. Haha, Brother Chu and Brother Flame, you are so powerful. I admire you. Qin Shijun and the others didn't leave after they injured the Jade Shura. Seeing that Chu Haitian and the flame coffin had succeeded, they walked up to them. The flame coffin smiled proudly and said, "No matter what, we are one step behind Brother Qin." Kong Qianjun let out a strange laugh and said, "Should we help that one?" Chu Haitian had a strange look on his face. He said coldly, "I advise you to turn around and watch." The others were shocked. When they turned around, they saw that the battle between Lu Ping and the 3rd Jade Shura had been covered by a mist that was dozens of feet wide. There was no sound coming from the mist, as if it had become a world of its own. Everyone's expressions changed. When did this happen? None of them had noticed it before, and when they saw the white fog, their divine senses felt lost when they came into contact with the white fog. Fear appeared in their hearts, and they all withdrew their divine senses. They looked at each other, but no one said anything. After a while, Qin Shijun sighed and said, "It seems that we've all underestimated this mysterious North Sea cultivator. I think we shouldn't be stingy with our respect." A flame flashed in the flame coffin's eyes, and he said, "Let's wait and see what happens." As soon as he said that, there was an explosion in the white mist. It was like a pot had been boiled. When they looked up, they saw the jade Shura suddenly run out of the mist. She didn't even look back as she ran. Chapter 1057. I will deal with one of them with Lu Tianping. Chu Haitian suddenly said. Not only Lu Ping, but the others were also very surprised. Chu Haitian had always been a proud and aloof person. He rarely joined hands with others to fight against an enemy. But now he actually took the initiative to join hands with Lu Ping. If this news were to spread out, it would definitely cause a lot of eyeballs to fall to the ground. Qin Shijun was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled bitterly and said, Brother Chu, it's not that I want to talk too much, but this is not a trivial matter. It is the key to whether Chengling Island can get rid of Mara's army and repair the gap. We should first send 2 fellow Taoists to deal with 2 of them. Then the 4 of us will join hands to kill one of them. This is the only way to win. Seeing that Lu Ping didn't object, Chu Haitian stood beside Lu Ping, turning a deaf ear to Qin Shijun's words. Qin Shijun smiled bitterly and turned to look at Lu Ping. Lu Ping made a helpless gesture, so Qin Shijun didn't say anything. Instead, he tried to organize the remaining 4 people. Since Lu Ping and Chu Haitian were going to join hands to deal with one of the jade poison Shura, as long as one of the remaining 4 people could deal with one of the jade poison Shura, the other 3 could still kill one of them. Unexpectedly, Yuan Feixiang suddenly smiled and said, In that case, Brother Qin, why don't you and I join hands to deal with one of them? Qin Shijun was stunned. Before he could react, the flame coffin laughed strangely and said, Very good, very good. This is fair. Kong Diyu, what do you think? Kong Qianjun still had a silly smile on his face and said, Whatever you guys say. Qin Shijun could only continue to smile bitterly. He looked at Yuan Feixiang and said helplessly, Since that's the case, I Qin can only go with the flow. Who knows, I might have to compete with you all. Brother Yuan, I'll have to ask for your help. Yuan Feixiang also smiled and said, You are too kind. Lu Ping could not kill a jade Shura face to face, even if he used all his skills. Qin Shijun, Kong Qianjun, and Yuan Feixiang could roughly guess the result from the fight with the 3 jade Shuras. Qin Shijun, Kong Qianjun, and Yuan Feixiang had only destroyed 1 jade Shura and let it escape in the end. Although the 3 of them still had tricks up their sleeves, the jade poison Shura was stronger than an ordinary jade Shura. Plus, she had many strange tricks up her sleeves that were hard to defend against. But then again, with the strength of the 6 of them, the difference between them was only a hair's breadth. If they really wanted to compete with the poison Shura, they had to challenge a high-risk target. Only then would they be able to use their skills to the fullest. Otherwise, this fight would only be a formality. The 6 of them reached an agreement. With his talent and skills, he was not afraid of being corroded by the poisonous mist. But when he saw that the colorful mist was the same as the one that poison Shura had used to block Lu Ping's thin water-long flow sword, he did not want to fight it head-on. How could poison Shura have such a dirty trick? Chu Haishao took a step back and used his space powers. He retreated more than 100 feet and avoided the colorful mist. At the same time, he stayed far away from poison Shura's attack range. Jade Shura suddenly turned around and swung the whip in her hand at Lu Ping. Lu Ping was shocked, and his 2 flying swords blocked the whip. But the whip was weak, and Lu Ping's block was not very effective. It continued to hit Lu Ping. At this moment, Chu Hai's voice suddenly sounded in Lu Ping's ears. Brother Lu, I'm not good with words, so I'll be frank. I'm going to use the first lightning tribulation to condense an innate supreme technique. However, in order to successfully condense this supreme technique, I'll need an item. Sister Hailan once said that Brother Lu might have this item. Even if you don't, you should have some clues about it. The surrounding water vapor gathered around Lu Ping, forming ribbons of water behind him. Under Lu Ping's control, the ribbons of water wrapped around the incoming whip. Even after the ribbons of water dissipated, the ribbons of water continued to surge forward and finally neutralized the force of the whip. Chu Haitian's green sky sword finally came to take some of the pressure off Lu Ping. And then he said, Sister Hailan said that Brother Lu's protective chi can be used to cultivate the 1,000 poison meteorite power shield. And what I need is the 1,000 poison paste needed to cultivate the 1,000 poison meteorite power shield. Lu Ping heard that it was indeed this item, but there wasn't the slightest hint of joy on his face. Instead, he smiled bitterly and said, "If I can really use this item to exchange for Brother Chu's help, then I will naturally be more than happy to do so. However, this is not an easy task. Even Brother Chu will find it extremely difficult to accomplish. It won't be too late for me to tell Brother Chu the details after this matter is over." "Oh, is there such a thing?" Chu Haitian's face showed a hint of confidence. Obviously, he did not think that Lu Ping's request could stump him, but he did not force it. Instead, he said, "Fine, then let's take care of this beast first." After saying that, the green sky sword shot into the sky with a green sword light, and condensed into a round ball of light in mid-air, as if a full moon had appeared in mid-air. It was the famous supreme sword skill of the green sea snakes, Bright Moon over the Sea. Poison Shura seemed to have also noticed that the sudden appearance of the moonlight in mid-air seemed to contain a great risk. Chapter 1058. External Incarnation. Brother Lu, nice move. Even someone as arrogant as Chu Haitian could not help but be surprised when he saw Lu Xiaoping. Lu Ping smiled faintly and said, "Brother Chu, you flatter me. Brother Chu's supreme sword skill, Bright Moon over the Sea, is also amazing." Lu Ping and Chu Haitian worked together to restrain Poison Shura's companion's spiritual treasure, and even made him pay the price of an eyeball. However, Poison Shura was not afraid at all, and became even crazier. Just as Chu Haishao controlled the whip cloud, and was about to unleash his divine power to severely injure the Azura, he saw Poison Azura reach out his hand to wipe his eye socket where he had lost an eye. A thick black liquid that was as black as ink came out, and covered Poison Azura's palm. Poison Shura pushed his palm at Chu Haitian, who was pouncing at him. When he looked at his palm again, there was no longer a trace of black poison on it. Chu Haitian's expression changed. His body that was pouncing at him retreated at an even faster speed. At the same time, the green cloud sword in his hand left his hand and stabbed at Poison Shura. Suddenly, strange black lines appeared on his face. They glowed and dimmed at times, obviously trying his best to stop the poison from corroding his body. The fact that it could poison the green sea snake was enough to show how violent the poison was. Seeing this, Lu Ping hurriedly controlled his flying swords to attack from the front and back. At the same time, he performed several hand seals with both hands. A huge wave was formed out of thin air and pounced at Poison Shura's back. The flying swords turned into a pair of sword dragons that were faintly discernible in the huge wave, ready to strike at any time. At the same time, Lu Ping drew a line in the air with one hand. A golden stream of water was drawn by Lu Ping and integrated into the huge wave. The entire wave was dyed in a layer of gold. The moment Lu Ping drew out the golden liquid from the spatial mystic instrument, Poison Azura and Chu Haishao were both stunned. Poison Azura's remaining eye flashed with a violent and murderous glint, but there was also a hint of fear hidden under the layer of murderous glint. Although Chu Haishao was still fighting against the poison that had mysteriously appeared in his body, a hint of joy appeared on his face when the golden liquid fused into the Jade Wave's skill. In the midst of the battle, Lu Ping did not notice the expressions of Azura and Chu Haitian. While maintaining the pressure on Poison Shura, Lu Ping drew out another stream of green liquid that was full of vitality and flew directly towards Chu Haitian. Just as Lu Ping and Chu Haitian joined forces to fight the Jade Poison Shura, the other two battles were also in full swing. Under the pressure of the two Jade Poison Shuras, the four Dharma adepts began to reveal their trump cards one by one. Obviously, he was still poisoned when he used the magical power. However, with his strength, it would only take him some time to expel the remaining poison. Who is that Lu Tianping? He seems to be a strong opponent. The flame coffin sneered. Why? Are you afraid? Kong Qianjun showed a simple and honest smile again. He said, "It's because we appreciate each other. But if I were you, I wouldn't put my energy on Lu Tianping." What? Your flame cage is going to explode. Boom. Kong Qianjun, what the fuck are you waiting for? The flame coffin's body was bathed in fire, and he shouted angrily. The jade poison Azura not only had the power of a jade Azura, but she also had a strange poison magical power. That was why she was stronger than a normal jade Azura. However, when the poison magical power that the jade Azura relied on was suddenly suppressed, the poisonous Azura fell into a panic. Chu Haitian used Lu Ping's green spirit liquid to quickly eliminate the poison of the poisonous Azura's magical power. At this time, the poisonous Azura was still in the giant wave of the blue tide chant, which had been mixed with the myriad poison serum. It was struggling to resist the attacks of the two sword dragons. Chu Haitian roared, and the light gold wave grew stronger. Lu Ping could tell that the roar was some kind of support magical power. The sword dragons that the poisonous Azura had bound with her companion's spiritual treasure broke free with the help of the tsunami-like wave. Poison Azura's poison techniques were countered by Lu Ping, and his companion's spiritual treasure was also countered by the twin flying swords. His strength was almost gone. Chu Haixiao's jade sky sword danced like a bright disc, easily breaking through Poison Azura's various defenses. The disc slashed horizontally, and Poison Azura's head flew high into the air. Poison Azura's poison whip, which had lost control, lashed around like a madman. The thin water-flowing sword had long been knocked away. Even the Jade Sea Rising Tide spell was broken by the overwhelming power of the companion's spiritual treasure when it was on the brink of destruction. Even Lu Ping had no choice but to retreat far away from the brunt of the attack. Then the poisonous whip began to peel off layer by layer, like an inkstone falling into water. It produced a black mist, but eventually dissipated. At first, when Chu Haitian saw that the poisonous whip was wreaking havoc everywhere and didn't explode with the poisonous Azura's death, he had a glimmer of hope in his heart. He shook the blue cloud sword and tried to suppress it with all his strength, but then it self-destructed. This made him lose his demeanor in front of Lu Ping, and he could only smile awkwardly. It wasn't that Lu Ping was a noble person, but when the poisonous whip had knocked away the dual flying swords, Lu Ping had sensed through the contact between the thin water flow sword and the poisonous whip that the spirit in the companion's spiritual treasure had gone berserk and was on the verge of self-destruction. Naturally, he wouldn't go forward to snatch it. Lu Ping waved his hand, and the golden myriad poison liquid that had merged into the blue sea tide earlier gathered in the tide again. After merging the corpse of a jade Azura-level poisonous Azura that had turned into origin essence into it, the size of the myriad poison liquid had obviously expanded. Chu Haitian stared at the golden liquid, his eyes shining. His mouth wriggled as if he wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by a series of loud noises. Dong! 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 Muffled noises came from not far away. Lu Ping and Chu Haitian looked at each other, and the two of them rushed toward the place where the noises came from. That was where the gap in the matrix was. Without the three jade poison Azuras in charge, the gap in the matrix was gradually recovering, and it was slowly shrinking. The Mara army outside the matrix naturally noticed this change, and so they began to attack the edge of the gap in an even more frenzied manner, trying to stop the gap from expanding. When the two of them arrived, the two Jade Azuras were doing their best to tear the gap apart, and a few Blood Azuras not far away were madly attacking the gap in the matrix, working together to prevent the gap from closing. A large number of Mara army was rushing through the passage to reinforce Chungling Island. The two of them did not say a word, and each of them used their treasures and spirit treasures to swarm into the passage to attack. The Mara army that was swarming in were mostly at the level of big and small Mara. Under the surprise attack of the two of them, there was no way they could fight back, and they all scattered in all directions. The passage was immediately occupied by the two of them. The two Jade Azuras who were trying their best to stop the passage were suddenly enraged. They shouted, and two Blood Azuras tried to rush in through the passage, but they were easily repelled by Lu Ping and Chu Haitian working together. Two Blood Azuras and one Blood Demon joined in, and the two of them worked together to occupy the entrance of the passage, once again blocking the attack of the Headless Blood Mara. At this time, Mara and the surrounding Poison Azuras, who had rushed into the matrix, realized that something was wrong, and they all gathered at the center of the passage, trying to gather their strength again to open up the passage. Unexpectedly, there was a commotion among the Mara army, and the Mara army was once again in chaos. Qin Shijun, Yuan Feixiang, Kong Qianjun, and the Flame Coffin had all taken care of their opponents, and were coming to reinforce the gap in the matrix. No one was going to complain about Lu Ping's lesser power, but Lu Ping's hiding made the Flame Coffin look at him with disdain. The Jade Shura and Blood Demon Luo's joint attack was once again repelled by Lu Ping and the others. Without a barrier, the tunnel began to shrink rapidly. The two Jade Shuras were so shocked that they couldn't be bothered to fight Lu Ping and the others anymore. Instead, they howled and turned around to use their companion treasures to stop the tunnel from closing up. Qin Shijun and the others weren't going to let the Jade Shura have their way. They were going to stop them, but Lu Ping's face changed. He seemed to have sensed something, and just as he was about to warn them, Qin Shijun's face changed when he saw the 7th floor of the glazed tower above his head. He didn't attack, as if he had sensed something too. Lu Ping's heart jumped, but he didn't warn them. Qin Shijun, who was next to him, said, "Be careful. Something big is coming." Everyone's faces changed. They knew what Qin Shijun was talking about, and they stopped attacking. Ignoring the two Jade Shura and the Blood Mara, they started to close up the hole in the spell formation. They were ready to deal with a bigger attack. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A few shimmering green vines shot out of thin air and grabbed the sides of the tunnel. They pulled, and the entrance, which was being held back by the Jade Shura and the Blood Mara, was now open by half a foot. Lu Ping and the others' expressions changed drastically. They immediately unleashed all the powerful skills and spells they had been preparing. This time, Lu Ping didn't hesitate to cast his innate supreme skill, Sea of 100 Rivers Sword skill. A powerful sword vortex appeared out of thin air outside the array formation and tore one of the vines into shreds. Lightning flashed, fire soared into the sky, and swords shone in the sky. Each of them managed to sever a vine. But other than Yuan Feixiang's lightning, the others were more or less slower than Lu Ping's. Moreover, the Sea of 100 Rivers swordplay was also very powerful. The Flame Coffin thought that Lu Ping hadn't learned any sort of a sword, and that he was only using a clone to fight with everyone else. He didn't expect Lu Ping to cast such a powerful sword spell, which was much more powerful than his sword of 100 rivers into the sea. Everyone worked together to dissolve the attacks of the Azuras, but the Jade Shura and Blood Mara took the opportunity to stabilize the tunnel that the Azuras had opened up by half a foot. At this time, Lu Ping and the others were no longer in the mood to deal with the Jade Shura and Blood Mara. However, with the appearance of the Azuras, everyone knew that there was no way out. Previously, the Azuras and Mara's army had been occupied by the great cultivators of the 9 sects and the 3 major demon tribes. That was why the spell formation hadn't been expanded. That was why Chung Ling Dan had been able to hold on until now. But now something had gone wrong. An Azura had come out again, and there was no great cultivator to stop it. Once Lu Ping and the others realized that they were no match for the Azura and retreated, the tunnel wouldn't close. It would expand even further. Once the Azura supported the tunnel and waited for the reinforcements of Mara's army to return from Yuanling Island, a larger army of Mara would invade Chungling Island without anyone to stop it. The humans and demons would most likely lose this battle. Once Chungling Dan was lost, Fantasy Spirit City would have to face a pincer attack from Mara's army. The situation would become even more disadvantageous for both the humans and demons. Qin Shijun smiled bitterly. "Everyone, it looks like we will have to work together to face an Azura. This challenge is not only difficult, but I'm afraid it will be difficult for us." Yuan Feixiang smiled and said, "Fortunately, we can still use the spell formation, so we have the geographical advantage. The appearance of this Azura must have attracted the attention of the great cultivators. As long as we hold on for a while, other great cultivators will come to help. Then, as long as we defeat the Jade Shura and Blood Mara, the spell formation will close up again, and we will win this battle." Qin Shijun also said, "Brother Yuan is right. 2 great cultivators have rushed to Yuanling Island to repair the damaged foundation of the spell formation. They must have returned by now. Let's see how long we can hold on. The few of them were all proud people. When they heard that they had to join forces to fight in Azura, although they said that they had to be careful and not be careless, and that they had to fight a bitter battle, they were all excited by the challenge, and their fighting spirits soared. This was an Azura, an existence that was said to be able to challenge the pure young Laozu. Usually it would take 2 great cultivators to fight it, 3 great cultivators to gain the upper hand, and 4 great cultivators to suppress it. In the battle on the Frost Island of the North Sea, 4 great cultivators of the human and demon clans worked together to kill an Azura. Although it was partly because of the conflict between the human and demon clans, it took them more than a month to force the Azura to the stormy ocean. If the giant whale King Kong Jing Laozu had not successfully passed the second Thunder Tribulation, and became the 3rd great cultivator of the demon clans, and the 5th great cultivator of the North Sea, and rushed to the stormy ocean, the great cultivators of the human and demon clans were worried that the situation in the North Sea would change, so they attacked with all their strength. However, they could only break the Azura's accompanying spiritual treasure and severely injure it, such as the stormy ocean. They could not kill it completely. If the 6 of them could really block the Azura outside the gap in the formation, then the 6 of them would not just be famous in the cultivation world. Their names would shake the entire cultivation world, and their status in the cultivation world would skyrocket. Pop, pop, pop. The sound of rolling water could be heard. Another 6 vines pierced out from the void, tearing at the edge of the spell formation. Obviously, the Azura had not reached the spell formation yet, but it was able to use its telekinesis to fight. This time, the power of the 6 vines had more than doubled. Obviously, the Azura had realized that the strength of the 6 cultivators was not to be underestimated. At the same time, it was getting closer and closer to the entrance of the spell formation. The flame spirit Coffin and Kong Qianjun let out a battle cry. When they used their spiritual treasures to display their supreme divine abilities, a peak-level spirit cultivation transcendent artifact rose from each of their bodies. Obviously, they were their natal artifacts. The transcendent artifacts followed closely behind their spiritual treasures. Eventually, the 2 of them managed to cut off the 2 vines. Yuan Feixiang and Chu Haitian also activated their 2 spiritual treasures. However, in addition to the 2 spiritual treasures in their hands, the 2 new spiritual treasures were also First Tribulation spiritual treasures. The 4 spiritual treasures shone brightly and cut off the vines along the edge of the spell formation. At the same time, they forced back the 2 blood Azuras that were tearing at the edge of the spell formation. Qin Shijun still held a scimitar spiritual treasure in his hand, but the 7th and 8th floors of the glazed pagoda above his head lit up at the same time. 2 vigorous forces gushed out one after another. It was 2 supreme divine abilities. The Sea of Clear River suppressed one of the vines, and at the same time, the 2 blood Mara nearby were suppressed as well. The scimitar, with the power of the other supreme divine ability, crushed the other vine and killed the suppressed Mara. The moment Qin Shijun made his move, Lu Ping made his move almost at the same time. It was still a pair of flying swords at the peak level of spirit cultivation, and it was still the supreme divine sword art of all rivers run into the sea. After that, Lu Ping made a set of extremely strange incantations with both hands. This time, everyone was paying attention to the methods that the others used, and there was no doubt that Lu Ping was the main focus. When Lu Ping used this set of incantations, it gave people a very strange feeling. The moment the Sea of all rivers run into the sea was created in the void, it had already been integrated into the sword art. Then everyone seemed to feel that everything around them was wavering. In a flash, the power of the Sea of all rivers run into the sea seemed to have doubled due to the integration of this set of incantations. The last remaining vine was instantly crushed, and at the same time, a jade shura was forced back. Chapter 1060. 2 Supreme Divine Powers. Just like Qin Shijun, Lu Tianping had also mastered 2 supreme divine powers. Not only the Flame Coffin and Kong Qianjun, but also Chu Hailan and Yuan Feixiang had never thought that Lu Ping had mastered 2 natal supreme divine powers. Even Chu Hailan himself had only reached the threshold of mastering the second supreme divine power. He was only one step away from mastering it. What kind of magic art was this? They could only see that this magic art enhanced the Sea of All Rivers technique. Was it really a kind of supreme divine power that was specially used for auxiliary purposes? If so, it was really a pity. They had never heard of anyone cultivating an auxiliary magic art to the level of a supreme divine power and using it as their natal supreme divine power. However, Qin Shijun and the others were the cream of the crop among their peers in terms of cultivation base, strength, knowledge, and so on. Naturally, they wouldn't believe that Lu Ping had cultivated a purely auxiliary innate supreme skill. However, they couldn't see through the essence of the skill. They could only sense that when the skill was cast, it gave them a feeling that time and space were in disarray, just like Lu Ping's supreme sword skill. Under the effects of this supreme sword skill, the duration of the supreme sword skill's power seemed to have doubled. Only when the supreme sword skill dissipated did the crowd realize that the duration of the supreme sword skill didn't increase. Instead, the supreme sword skill's power had been greatly enhanced without them noticing. And this feeling of disorientation in time and space left a deep impression on the crowd. Qin Shijun said in surprise, "Brother Lu, what kind of magic art is this? It's so wonderful." Lu Ping smiled. When he was about to speak, he saw a body that was almost no different from a human cultivator appear in front of them. But they felt an unparalleled pressure from this body. They knew that the person in front of them was the Azura, who had never shown up. Everyone's heart sank. Even though everyone was extremely excited about facing an Azura and their battle-intent sword, and they even worked together to resolve the Azura's telekinesis technique twice, when they really faced an Azura, their anxiety and nervousness quickly rose, suppressing their raging battle intent in one fell swoop. The Azura seemed to be able to see through their thoughts. He smiled evilly like a human, opened his hands, and suddenly put them together. A wild wave suddenly surged toward them. The flame spirit coffin and Kong Qianjuan's expressions changed dramatically. They both patted their chests. An Luan bird with 3 fiery feathers, and a Kuan fish with 2 wing-like fins under its abdomen rose from behind them. They were the Luan and Kuan fish, which were the Dharma shapes of Luan and Kuan, after they had stepped into the Dharma Xiang stage. The Luan Dharma idol shook its 3 flaming feathers, and the fire bead in the flame spirit coffin's hand suddenly burst into flames, breaking through the oncoming raging waves. The Kuan fish Dharma idol waved its tail, and like a fish swimming upstream, it easily swept away the impact of the raging waves, and stood at the edge of the passageway. The two heaved a long sigh of relief. When they turned to look at the others, their expressions changed. They saw that a huge gourd had risen above Yuan's head. Violent lightning surged out from the gourd like chains of lightning, firmly holding Yuan in place. Thunder gourd of 7 treasures. Kong Qianjuan's expression changed dramatically when he saw the gourd, and he blurted out. Although the Thunder 7-gem gourd had not advanced to the level of a spirit treasure, it was still a treasure at the peak of the spirit cultivation stage. At least its quality was much higher than the gourd that Lu Ping had hidden in his core space, and its power was also much stronger. It was enough to help Yuan block the Azura's close-range attack. Lu Ping's eyelids twitched, and the Thunder 7-gem gourd in his core space jumped up and down, as if it could not wait to jump out. Lu Ping naturally would not expose such a treasure at this time. The Dragon Dharma power slapped it away, and only then did it calm down. Chu Hailan's aura surged wildly. The aura around Chu Hailan's body surged, and under the watchful eyes of the people around him, he broke through the early Dharma stage. The spirit treasures in his hands spun around him like a bottomless abyss, absorbing all the waves that came crashing down on him. His body was still standing firmly at the edge of the passageway. However, after dispelling the impact of Azura's remarkable power, Chu Hailan's aura began to decline until he returned to the early Dharma stage. It was obvious that he had used an extremely mysterious secret technique that allowed him to raise his own level of power to the mid-Dharma stage in a short period of time. This was done in order to deal with any sudden danger, and it did not last for too long. If Chu Hailan had used a secret technique to temporarily raise his level of training to the mid-Dharma stage. Then what Qin Shijun was displaying now was the true power of the mid-Dharma stage. A huge aura surged around him, causing the air within a 1-foot radius to tremble. This was the true power of a mid-Dharma adept. With this level of power as a shield, Qin Shijun was still able to use the first Calamity Spirit treasure in his hand and easily nullify the Asura's attack. This person had hidden his strength well. Only then did the crowd realize that when they had focused their attention on Lu Ping, a practitioner of the same level as them, wanting to dig out more of his hidden cards, they had not expected Qin Shijun to be one step ahead of them. He had passed the first Thunder trial and entered the mid-Dharma stage. Even so, after Qin Shijun's sudden outburst, the crowd's attention on Lu Ping didn't diminish. Facing the Asura head-on was undoubtedly a challenge for the crowd, but it was also a chance for them to spy on each other's strengths and learn about each other's trump cards. At least up until now, the Flame Spirit Coffin and Kong Qianjun had been forced to reveal their Dharma powers. Chu Hailan had revealed the secret technique that allowed him to increase his level of training, and Yuan Feifei had revealed a treasure like the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash. Of course, the most valuable thing was that Qin Shijun had revealed that he had already entered the mid-Dharma stage. The third generation of practitioners competed with each other. However, in the face of the huge gap that was the first Thunder trial, the most elite practitioners had always been limited to the early Dharma stage and had not broken through. This also caused them to compete on equal footing and compete with each other in terms of ability. This kind of competition pushed these elite practitioners to continuously strengthen their foundations in the early Dharma stage. They used methods such as digging out their own potential, refining secret techniques and powers, and searching for rare treasures to increase their abilities. However, these practitioners naturally knew that this balance was extremely fragile. The way to break this balance was also extremely simple, and that was to cross the gap between life and death. Once someone broke this balance and entered the mid-Dharma stage, then the title of the first of the third generation would very likely be well-deserved. Qin Shijun, the first official practitioner of the third generation of the Crystal Palace, had already crossed this gap at some point, but he had kept it a secret. He only revealed it now that he was facing the threat of death from Asura. Everyone's hearts were pounding, and at the same time, they were secretly thankful. Qin Shijun, who had entered the mid-Dharma stage, had suddenly replaced Lu Ping as the practitioner that everyone was most unfamiliar with. However, this did not mean that Lu Ping was no longer the focus of everyone's attention. The appearance of 2 unfathomable teammates in a team would only make everyone more vigilant. Zheng, 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 Zheng. 4 flying swords circled around Lu Ping's body, but everyone's eyes were fixed on the last flying sword, which had a trace of blood red, but was also dyed with a rich 5-colored light. It turned out that he also had a spirit-nurturing treasure with him. Previously, Lu Ping had never used a spirit treasure to fight against an enemy, and he had even used 2 supreme powers at once, just like Qin Shijun. Now that he had suddenly used a flying sword, although everyone was slightly disappointed, he had still managed to force out one of his trump cards. However, was this guy really sure that he could block Asura's attack with just this? This question only flashed through everyone's minds for a moment, but then they saw the 4 flying swords each dancing, and the soaring auras on the flying swords were all different. Was this guy going to use 4 different kinds of powers? Was this a joke? Did he have enough divine will to control 4 kinds of powers at the same time? Did he have enough inner yuan to resist the pressure of 4 powers on his own bloodline? However, the truth that was displayed in front of everyone forced them to believe it. Not only did Lu Ping have this ability, but he was even more powerful than them. Water Ghost Sword Natural Great Power Shapeless Sword Technique. Thin Water Sword Natural Great Power All Rivers into the Sea Technique. Flowing Sword Natural Great Power Seeping Sword Technique. Blood Orange Sword Natural Great Power Great River Flowing Sword Technique. 3 Spirit Nurturing Flying Swords, and 1 flying sword that had been swallowed by the Gentian Pearl, that had been imprinted with the improved Great River Flowing Sword Technique. All 4 kinds of sword techniques were released at once, breaking through the waves of power that were rushing towards Lu Ping in one fell swoop. How could this be? How could this be? What a powerful divine will! What vigorous true essence! What tenacious bloodline! The Azura was initially a little surprised to see that a few early Dharma adepts from the human and demon clans were actually able to break through his attack. And in the end, his gaze lingered on Qin Shijun and Lu Ping. Just as everyone was preparing to deal with an even more ferocious attack from the Azura, they saw that the Azura had suddenly strangely stopped. Everyone still did not dare to be careless, but suddenly felt the space around them ripple, and two great adepts suddenly appeared outside the passageway, attacking the Azura from the left and right. Suddenly, an earth-shattering battle broke out between the three, and they tumbled all the way away from the entrance of the passageway. Reinforcements had finally arrived. The 6 people who had originally gathered their energy and were ready to fight to the death were suddenly like deflated balloons, each of their faces pale and sweating profusely. They looked like they had used up too much inner yuan and were at the end of their rope. They no longer had the awe-inspiring aura that they had when they challenged the Azura earlier. Qin Shijun was, after all, a mid-Dharma adept. He was the strongest among the 6 of them. He forced a smile and said, "Everyone, now is not the time to slack off. Let's wait for the gap to be completely repaired before we resume our work." Everyone lost interest in fighting for a moment, and quickly chased away a few blood Mara that were still trying to restrain the formation. Immediately, the passageway began to recover at an extremely fast speed. Seeing that the passageway was reduced to the last 3 feet in length, there was no longer any Devil Luo who dared to attack it again. However, they heard a faint roar that sounded like it came from the ancient times coming from afar. The 6 people's expressions changed drastically again. Chapter 1061. Looking at the last 3 feet of the hole, the 6 people could not help but feel relieved this time. It seemed that victory was already waving to them. However, right at this moment an unexpected event occurred. A strange howl suddenly sounded from afar, and the expressions of the 6 of them instantly changed drastically. They were all extremely familiar with this howl. During the Battle of Yuanling Island, this howl had always been commanding the All-Devil army there, and it allowed everyone to know that the existence that had let out the howl was the existence that had been hiding within the All-Devil army and had never revealed itself. The heavenly demon. The roar was very far away, but the invisible sound waves had no effect on the Mara army outside the formation shield. But in the eyes of Lu Ping and others, it was even more terrifying than the raging waves. The 3 feet of the tunnel entrance was like a cave filled with wind, making a strange roar in the air. The 6 people all propped up their protective aura, but the sound waves made ripples like waves. The 6 of them exchanged glances with each other. When they saw that the tunnel entrance had once again shrunk by half a foot, they had the intention to retreat. However, before they could move, they saw dark clouds churning in the sky. They had practically covered half of the sky, and the entire place was clearly incomparably dark. A green light flashed in Lu Ping's eyes, and a sharp light more than a foot long shot out from his eyes. At the same time, Yuan Feixiang's eyes crackled with lightning. The two shouted almost at the same time, "Not good, defend!" In the dark cloud, a human silhouette loomed in it, and the black fog around it turned into various demons, as if it had a spirit, and its face showed a variety of hideous and miserable expressions. Just at the moment when the two shouted at the same time, a deafening roar suddenly came from the dark cloud. Roar! The voices of the two were immediately drowned out by this loud roar. A sound wave that could almost be seen with the naked eye came all the way, squeezing the space to pieces. The original 2.5 feet of the hole was directly torn by the sound wave like a broken rag. The remaining force did not stop, and directly raged towards the 6 people's divine senses. Although the flame spirit Coffin and Kong Qianjun had already summoned their Dharma idols out of the core space, they still let out a miserable shriek. The Dharma idols above their heads were almost blown away by the strong wind. Then, they tumbled backwards and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Yuan Feixiang let out a muffled groan, and a majestic golden-winged thunder rock flashed over his head. And then he was drowned by the overflowing lightning. Then, Yuan Feixiang retreated a few feet all the way, and then he slowly stopped. The dark clouds in the sky rapidly shrank, and a pair of faint lights shot through the dark clouds. Qin Shijun and the others suddenly felt a chill run down their spines. The two dark lights must have been the eyes of the devil hidden in the soul-devouring black fog. And Lu Ping seemed to feel that the two dark lights had been staring at him for a particularly long time. The passageway had once again shrunk to less than 3 feet. At this time, the Flame Spirit Coffin and Kong Qianjun were both seriously injured. Yuan Feixiang and Chu Haitian had also expended a lot of their inner yuan. Although Qin Shijun and Lu Ping still had some strength left, once the devil launched another attack, the two of them alone would not have the confidence to defend against it. However, the strange thing was that after the devil had seriously injured the 6 of them, it did not make any further moves. Lu Ping and Qin Shijun looked at each other in surprise. It was only then that Lu Ping realized that the passageway seemed to be shrinking faster and faster. By now, there was only 2 feet left in the passageway. Qin Shijun also came to his senses. When he turned around, he saw that the surrounding poisonous clouds were slowly dissipating. The poisonous Azura tribe was almost completely annihilated. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen rays of light had already approached them. Among them were the 6 Fa Xiangs of their respective forces, Laozu. Lu Ping and Qin Shijun were relieved. They knew that Mara's plan on Chengling Island had been defeated. As for Chengling Island, although it was still a mess, it was only a matter of time before Mara was annihilated without any reinforcements. The devil must have seen that there was no hope for the passageway to recover, and that the reinforcements from Lu Ping and the others had arrived. That was why the devil did not attack again. Old Ancestor Tian Kong took the lead, still not dispelling his earth element true body. The dark hell venom fire circled around him as he held the mountain-splitting hatchet tightly in his hand and landed in front of Lu Ping. Seeing that other than Lu Ping's aura being a little unstable due to the exhaustion of his true essence, old Ancestor Tian Kong heaved a sigh of relief and said, "You are a little rash this time." Lu Ping knew that this was the old man's sincere concern for him. He immediately said, "Thank you for your concern, Granduncle. I was indeed a little reckless this time, but I'm lucky." Tian Kong Laozu nodded and sighed. However, there was a slight hint of pride on his face. He turned around and looked at Qin Shijun, Kong Qianjun, and the others who had been protected by the elders of their respective forces. He said, "The outcome of this battle has been decided. You should return to Ling Island to recuperate first. Leave the matters here to us old fellows." Lu Ping felt that he had gained a lot from this battle. 6 or 7 consecutive self-destruction at the level of Mara killed 5 Dharma adepts, including 1 at the mid-Dharma stage Laozu. 6 or 7 others were seriously injured. In addition, the self-destruction of many small and large Mara also caused many human and demon core forging adepts to die, and the number of casualties was even higher. Yuancheng Laozu's warning was timely enough. In the face of the threat of death, the human and demon core forging adepts were naturally very vigilant. Even so, the following series of self-destruction of Mara still caused the human and demon core forging adepts to suffer heavy losses. At this time, Lu Ping could no longer care about returning to Spirit Mountain. Instead, he and Tiankong Laozu hurriedly avoided the existence of those who were at the level of Blood Mara and above, and headed towards the 3 talents and 5 elements Great Formation, formed by more than 20 core forging adepts of Jinling. After all, Immortal Xian Su was an extremely experienced second-generation adept. Under his command, Jinling's Great Formation was steady and not greedy. From the time they arrived on Chengling Island until now, there were not many casualties. The only time they lost an early core forging adept and 2 mid-core forging adepts were seriously injured because they were targeted by a blood shura. However, the moment the passage of the Great Formation was completely sealed, Immortal Xian Su naturally knew that this meant that the human and demon core forging adepts would win this battle. For a moment, it was inevitable that he would be a little careless. Not only did Immortal Xian Su feel this way, but the more than 20 core forging adepts of Jinling also chose to relax at this moment after their minds had been stretched taut for such a long time. 2 great shuras instantly rushed into the Great Formation and self-destructed. Immortal Xian Su realized that the situation was not good when he saw the 2 great shuras rushing into the Great Formation, as if they were committing suicide. He hurriedly began to operate the defense of the Great Formation with all his might. However, the self-destruction was so sudden that 3 early and mid-stage core forging adepts died on the spot. 6 or 7 others were injured. Among them, 3 were seriously injured and basically had no chance of advancing further in their cultivation in the future. One of them was even a late-stage core forging adept. After that, Yuanchong Laozu's voice sounded. Immortal Xian Su had no time to blame himself, and hurriedly operated the Great Formation to defend at all times. As expected, a few more Great Mara rushed over and perished together, but they were all successfully defended by Immortal Xian Su. Even so, there were still 5 or 6 adepts who were injured by the aftermath of the Mara's self-destruction. The flame spirit coffin looked at Laozu Chu Tianyu and said in a low voice, "You really don't want to lend it?" "No." "Okay then." There was not the slightest regret or anger on the flame spirit coffin's face. Instead, a smile suddenly appeared on his face and he said, "Actually, this junior has a private request. If the 2 seniors can agree, this junior can give this life continuation elixir to Tianyu Laozu as a private gift." Patriarch Chu Fuyu raised his head abruptly. His eyes were as sharp as swords as he stared at the flame spirit coffin, forcing the latter to avert his gaze. "Brat, are you here to make fun of my Emerald Sea Spirit Snake clan today?" Lu Ping saw that although the other party's attitude was bad before, he was also a person with real talent, so he did not mock him. Instead, he nodded and said, "Yes, it is the spiritual water alchemy technique." Chuyu asked in surprise. "I heard that there was a cultivator who mastered the ancient flowing water alchemy technique in the North Sea cultivation world." The old man did not believe it at first, but later I heard from Grandmaster Yen that it was true. I did not expect that the person who inherited the spiritual water alchemy technique would be you. Chu Haiming took the opportunity to add, 13th uncle, I'm afraid you still don't know, but Brother Lu was also guided by Grandmaster Yen. Oh, there's such a thing. When Chuyu heard that, he no longer looked at Lu Ping with a scrutinizing gaze. Lu Ping took out a jade slip from his storage device, and a blue light flashed in his hand. Then, he handed the jade slip to Taoist Master Chuyu and said, "This contains the various spiritual herbs and spiritual items needed to refine the spiritual water spirit attraction pill. I'm confident that even if Grandmaster Yen has other methods to treat Tianyu Laozu's injuries, he will still need most of the herbs in this list. So, you can collect the precious items according to the list I've copied, and make preparations in advance." Lu Ping knew that they would not make a choice in a short time after getting his judgment, so he said, "In that case, I'll take my leave first." Chu Haitian suddenly shivered, as if he had thought of something bad. He hurriedly said, "Brother Lu, I'll see you off." Chu Haiming also followed suit and said, "I'll go too." After Lu Ping left, Chuyu was still reading the contents of the jade slip with a frown. Chu Fuyu and Chu Tianyu looked at each other and said, 13th brother, what do you think?" Chuyu passed the jade slip to Chu Fuyu and said, "Truthfully speaking, I can't make up my mind. Even though the jade slip doesn't record the specific method of refining this medicinal pill, I can make some guesses based on the spiritual herbs and spiritual objects he listed. It should roughly be using the spirituality of a spiritual object as a catalyst to reform seventh brother's scattered quintessence. It does make sense, but the process of healing is extremely dangerous. The slightest mistake will definitely cause seventh brother's cultivation to disperse." Chu Fuyu passed the jade slip to Chu Tianyu and said, "Let's collect the spiritual herbs and spiritual items according to this kid's recipe first. Even if we don't need him to refine the spirit drawing pill. Didn't he say that even Grandmaster Yen would need to use most of the things recorded in it?" Chuyu hesitated for a moment and said, "Even though most of the spiritual herbs and spiritual items recorded in it are extremely rare, It's not impossible to collect them with the resources of our clan, but it will take some effort. He is a genuine third-generation elite cultivator. Which sect in the cultivation world does not recognize him? It would have been better if he had not mentioned Lu Ping. But the mention of Lu Ping made Xian Yong even angrier. He is an anomaly. How much help do you think he has received from the sect along the way? It can't be said that there is none, but it is very little. What about us? Everyone was silent again. At this time, Jinren Xianheng spoke again. Yes, just now that sword teleportation, he blocked 2 blood shuras in one go. Junior brother Lu's strength is becoming more and more unfathomable. As soon as Jinren Xianheng finished speaking, he wanted to slap himself. Obviously, he had said the wrong thing again. Sure enough, Jinren Xianyong, who had been glared at by Jinren Xianling, spoke again. The gap is getting bigger and bigger. Among us third-generation disciples, apart from the monster junior brother Lu, only senior brother Xian Tian is qualified to break through to the Dharma manifestation stage. But now he is only preparing to condense his third heaven and earth spirit item. I don't know what grade of golden core he has achieved. How can we, the third generation, compare to the third generation cultivators of those major sects? Do we have to rely on junior brother Lu for everything? Jinren Xianling could not help but sigh. Our sect may be progressing a little too fast, but our foundation is still not as good as those major sects that have thousands of years of accumulation. Jinren Xianheng retorted, that's not right. I heard that Xian Chu is also condensing his third heaven and earth spirit item. Xian seems to have reached the 9th stage of the core forging stage. There are also senior brother Xian Hui, Xian Ru, Xian Kai, Xian Yuan, Xian Bei, and a few other senior brothers and sisters, who are almost at the 8th or 9th stage of the core forging stage. Jinren Xianyong said, but we are still too slow. Haven't you noticed that in the current cultivation world, the older generation cultivators are giving up their positions? The first generation cultivators retire, the second generation cultivators take over, but it is the third generation cultivators who are truly outstanding in the cultivation world. More specifically, it is the third generation cultivators who have advanced to the Dharma manifestation stage. But now, our sect only has junior brother Lu to support it, and we are weak. Jinren Xianling saw that Jinren Xianyong's words were beginning to affect her sect's morale, so she interrupted. All right. Our sect still has junior brother Lu. Among the other sects in the North Sea, which third-generation cultivators have a Dharma manifestation cultivator. Jinren Xianyong rarely rebuked Jinren Xianling. He said, you can't say that. Since our sect wants to become a large sect, we naturally cannot limit our sites to these ordinary medium-sized sections. Although they did not resent Lu Ping because of this, they still felt indignant. However, this anger was used to reflect on themselves, and instead stimulated their desire to improve. After the 4 of them returned to Spirit Gathering Island, the void above the island shook and Lu Ping walked out. Behind him was Chu Haidong. Chu Haidong smiled and said, the senior brothers of your sect are very ambitious. It seems that the recent rumors about your sect have the opposite effect. Lu Ping sneered and said, it's just some dirty tricks. If our sect can't even resist such rumors, then we don't need to attack the large sects. The 2 of them hovered in the air and looked in the direction that Master Xian Yong and the others had left. The void shook again, and the thin water-flowing sword came out. It circled around Lu Ping, and then disappeared into Lu Ping's body. Chu Haidong saw this and said, Brother Lu's flying sword is probably at the last step, right? Recently, the 5 islands of phantom spirits have attracted several spiritual treasure lightning tribulations. Brother Lu, do you want to give it a try? Lu Ping smiled and said, there's no rush. It's better for this pair of flying swords to settle for a while. Chu Haidong smiled and said, that's true. I don't know how many spiritual treasure lightning tribulations have been completed, but I heard that 2 of them have been destroyed. Transforming a spiritual treasure into a spiritual treasure is both easy and difficult. However, this also shows that the pressure on spiritual treasures is too great. It seems that during the recent war between the human and demon clans in Mara, Many spiritual treasures have been destroyed, right? Chu Haidong sighed and said, "That's right. My father's second tribulation spiritual treasure was almost destroyed. Although the weapon spirit was preserved, I don't know when it will recover." Lu Ping smiled and asked, "Speaking of Senior Tianyu's injury, how is he now?" Chu Haidong glanced at Lu Ping and said, "Brother Lu, do you want to know if my father's injury was caused by the flame coffin's life-prolonging pill, or by Brother Lu's spiritual water refining technique?" Lu Ping neither admitted nor denied it. Chu Haidong continued, "Actually, the reason why I invited Brother Lu to participate in the trade fair is to collect the materials that Lu Ping listed for refining the spiritual water refining pill. However, before that, I would like to ask Brother Lu to follow me back to Chungling Island." "Why?" Chu Haidong smiled bitterly. "This is actually Brother Haijiao's idea. He was grounded by 6th Grandpa because of his relationship with Sister Hailan. Brother Lu's invitation to participate in the trade fair just happened to give him a chance to escape. Now that you have a lot of faith, even 6th Grandpa can't refuse. When the time comes, Father can just say a few words and Brother Haijiao's punishment will only exist in name." Chapter 1069. The rumors had dealt quite a heavy blow to many of the third-generation cultivators in Jinling. Even Lu Ping could not step forward to say anything. Fortunately, the relationship between the disciples in Jinling was pretty good. Thus, the provocative words had the opposite effect when it came to Jinling. Currently, the third-generation cultivators were either cultivating or hunting down Mara. On the surface, everything seemed to be the same as before. But in fact, everyone had advanced a lot. Naturally, Tiankong Laozu was happy to see this happen. He no longer paid any attention to the rumors. Ever since he heard about Yin Wujiao from the Green Sea Snakes, Lu Ping had the intention to inquire about the Fire Phoenix clan from Chu Haiming. In fact, Chu Haiming did not know much about the situation of the Fire Phoenix clan. At the very least, it was about the same as what Lu Ping had learned through other means. The old patriarch of the Fire Phoenix clan, Yin Jiuxiao, was an extremely tyrannical figure. He had occupied the throne of the Fire Phoenix clan's patriarch for 500 years. Before Chu Fanyan, the former patriarch of the Green Sea Snakes, became the patriarch of the Fire Phoenix clan, Yin Jiuxiao was already the leader of the Fire Phoenix clan. However, after Chu Fanyan stepped down, and Chu Feiyu took over as the patriarch, Yin Jiuxiao continued to occupy the position of patriarch. Logically speaking, after the rise of the second-generation cultivators of the Green Sea Snakes, as the first-generation cultivator, Yin Jiuxiao should have stepped down and retired. However, this old patriarch's desire for power was extremely strong. During his 500 years in office, he had cultivated a large number of direct descendants. Furthermore, he had obtained the support of the highly respected members of the clan. Thus, he had always dominated the position of patriarch. The Fire Phoenix clan was free and unrestrained. They were originally an extremely undisciplined demon clan. Although they were known as one of the 3 great demon clans in the Eastern Sea, in reality, the Fire Phoenix clan was not as strong as the Green Sea Snakes, nor as united as the Koan Fish. When there were real struggles over the distribution of benefits, the Fire Phoenix clan would often be defeated by the other clans. However, ever since Yin Jiuxiao took up the position of patriarch, he began to decisively reform the Fire Phoenix clan with the help of several knowledgeable experts of the Fire Phoenix clan. As a result, the Fire Phoenix clan began to truly acknowledge the entire clan. Their power was effectively consolidated, and their prestige in the Eastern Sea grew with each passing day, surpassing that of the Green Sea Snakes. From this point of view, Yin Jiuxiao could truly be considered an extremely talented and bold person in the Fire Phoenix clan. During the 300 years he had been the clan chief, the Fire Phoenix clan had always been on the rise. However, after 300 years of reform, the Fire Phoenix clan was already on the right track. It was time for the Fire Phoenix clan's patriarch to step down and pass his position to someone more capable. However, at this time, this old patriarch, who had an extremely strong desire for power, refused to step down. This caused a huge uproar within the Fire Phoenix clan, and the Fire Phoenix clan began to split. A portion of the newly risen second and third generation cultivators of the Fire Phoenix clan split off from Yan Jiuxiao's power, with the support of several first-generation experts who had originally supported Yan Jiuxiao's reform. They requested Yan Jiuxiao to step down from the position of patriarch and obtain the approval of a considerable portion of the ordinary cultivators of the Fire Phoenix clan. At this time, some conservative forces who had originally opposed the reform also jumped out to attack Yan Jiuxiao wantonly. Yan Jiuxiao had clearly overestimated the results of his 300 years of hard work. It was true that he had gathered a group of direct descendants around him, and he had also won over a portion of the ordinary cultivators of the Fire Phoenix clan, due to his 300 years of prestige. However, his tyrannical nature and his refusal to listen to any opposing opinions were also criticized by others. Although the Fire Phoenix clan had been on the rise for the past 300 years, there had been many strategic mistakes during this period, and most of them were caused by Yan Jiuxiao's tyrannical nature. For the past 200 years, Yan Jiuxiao had always been working hard to reunite the divided Fire Phoenix clan under his control. Thus, he set his goal on the third lightning tribulation. He believed that once he achieved the pure Yang avatar, his authority in the Fire Phoenix clan would undoubtedly increase. At the same time, he would also be able to win over a few of the neutral factions that had drifted between the three great powers to his side. However, even though Yan Jiuxiao had not neglected his cultivation for the past 500 years, it had still dragged down his cultivation progress. Wanting to overcome his third lightning tribulation in such a short period of time was truly beyond his ability, so he had thought of borrowing external help. At this time, the wooden phoenix minor repairs that Grandmaster Flame Spirit Coffin had originally protected had gradually entered the eyes of the Fire Phoenix clan's great powers as he grew. Yan Jiuxiao had made the first move, but the Flame Spirit Coffin had long sensed this, and had already sent the wooden phoenix Luan Yu away. Other than the Flame Spirit Coffin, no one else knew of his whereabouts. The Flame Spirit Coffin was known as the #1 alchemist grandmaster overseas, and had a great reputation among the Fire Phoenix clan. However, it seemed that no matter which it was, Chu Haitian had exposed his feelings for Chu Hailan in front of the two elders this time, so he would not have a good time. So how is the collection going? Lu Ping naturally would not care about the personal affairs of the green sea snakes, so he just asked casually. Chu Haishao thought for a moment and said, "Even though most of the things Brother Lu listed are rare and precious, with the strength of my Jade Sea Spirit Serpent clan, we should be able to gather almost all of them. Only that myriad profundity dew is slightly difficult." Wonder Jade Nectar? Lu Ping said in surprise. Although this item is rare, it is only of the heaven middle grade. With the heritage of the green sea snakes for tens of thousands of years, can't we gather one? Chu Haitian shook his head and said, "It is difficult. This time, the reason why 6th grandfather let me participate in this trade fair, although it is said that Brother Lu is giving face, in fact, it is also to see whether or not I can obtain information about the Wonder Jade Nectar." Lu Ping's mind was already full of thoughts. Wonder Jade Nectar? Now the thing that I lack the least is the Wonder Jade Nectar. This trade fair was a gathering organized by Qin Shijun and the others for the third-generation Dharma adepts. Although it was mainly for the exchange of information between the various sects, it was also for the exchange of information between the third-generation Dharma adepts of the human and demon races. At the same time, it also represented the sects and tribes that they belonged to. In the eyes of those who were interested, this gathering might be a preview for the future of the various sects and tribes of the East Sea. The location of the gathering was in the center of Phantom City, in an inn not far from the Phantom Palace. The inn was 3 stories high, and was surrounded by a very good array. Today, the inn had been fully booked, and the trade fair was held on the 3rd floor. The human race had 1 holy land, 9 major sects, 25 medium-sized sects, and in addition to the large and small forces that had fallen in the secret territory, casual practitioners and travelers, there were only 19 early Dharma adepts present. Among them, there were 12 third-generation Dharma adepts from the Crystal Palace and the 9 major sections. There were only 3 from the medium-sized sects, including Lu Ping. The remaining 4, other than Yuan Feixiang, were casual practitioners whose identities were unknown. The 3 major demon tribes and 12 tribes had nearly 17 third-generation elite adepts on the 5 islands of Phantom City. Among them, there were 8 from the 3 major tribes alone. The arrival of Lu Ping, Chu Haitian, and Chu Hiren immediately attracted the attention of most of the adepts. Qin Shijun personally welcomed them. Before he reached them, he laughed and said, "Brother Lu, Brother Chu, you two are late. You will be punished as usual." Of course, Yuan Feixiang seemed to have been talking to Qin Shijun earlier. The two of them had come out together. Hearing Qin Shijun's words, she smiled and said, "Brother Chu, you don't have to say much. You may not know this, but Brother Lu has always been known as the treasure boy in the North Sea. He is also a great alchemy master. If the 3 of you can't bring out a decent treasure today, we will not let it go." With the flattery of these two, although many of the adepts present did not think much of Lu Ping, they did not want to disrespect Qin Shijun and Yuan Feixiang. With all kinds of thoughts, they all chimed in. In the Battle of Chungling Island, Lu Ping had shown brilliantly. At the gap in the matrix, he had joined forces with Qin Shijun and the other 5 to fight against the Azuras. The strength he had displayed was not inferior to any of them, and it had shaken the entire 5 islands. The impact on the other third-generation Dharma adepts was even more intense. One had to know that the 5 people who had fought against Lu Ping, excluding Lu Ping, were all people of high status. If it was not for the help of the 7 Thunder Treasures calabash, Lu Ping would not have been able to condense the Yin Water Divine Lightning into a great magic power so easily. Of course, the thunder magic power could also use other external forces to speed up the cultivation or reduce the cultivation difficulty. The Heaven Thunder Wondrous Stone was one of them, and it was one of the more outstanding treasures, especially in the face of Mara's crisis. With a thunder magic power in hand, coupled with a treasure that was suitable for using the thunder magic power, the effect was often comparable to the power of a supreme magic power, but the difficulty was much easier than condensing a supreme magic power. Furthermore, even if a thunder magic power was not used to deal with Mara, when fighting with others, it would still be one of the most powerful of the great magic powers. Otherwise, how could the Yuan clan have been able to stand tall in the cultivation world for tens of thousands of years without falling? All these aside, just the Sky Thunder Rare Stone itself, with just a little bit of refinement, would be an incredible defensive treasure. When it was detonated during a battle, the power that it would unleash would be something that even a mid-Dharma adept would have to avoid. Therefore, when Yuan Feixiang displayed the Heaven Thunder Wondrous Stone on the display stage, it instantly attracted the exclamations of the dozens of Dharma adepts present. A practitioner suddenly asked loudly from below the stage, "Friend Yuan, such a treasure, are you really only using it to exchange for the best spirit stone?" Yuan Feixiang made a helpless gesture and said, "I am not an overseas practitioner after all, and the spirit stone mine of the 5 Phantom Islands is not for me to enjoy. I can only use this stone to exchange for some training supplies." Since the theft of the spirit stone mine of Yuanling Island had weakened the protective matrix of Chungling Island and was broken by Mara's army, the great practitioners of the human and demon clans in the Phantom Palace had made a decision, which was to excavate the spirit stone mine in a planned way and supply it directly to the practitioners of the various sects. In order to strengthen the cultivation and strength of the practitioners of the various sects, and to have more power to resist Mara's attack, and Yuan Feixiang, and the other practitioners who did not belong to the 9 sects, the 25 forces, the 3 tribes, and the 12 tribes naturally did not have the right to enjoy the spirit stone supply. Other than the great practitioners of the Crystal Palace, the 9 sects, and the 3 tribes, there were probably very few people who knew that the Phantom Palace had to do this to balance the protective matrix of the 5 islands. Although the hidden danger caused by the theft of the spirit stone mine of Yuanling Island had been temporarily suppressed, it had not been eliminated. To fundamentally eliminate this hidden danger, the only way was to restore the balance between the 5 spirit stone mines. This was also the reason why during this period of time, except for the one on Yuanling Island, the other 4 spirit stone mines had reopened for mining. Of course, the Phantom Palace naturally would not explain this to the outside world. These things were verified by the jade slip left behind in Kong Wu's inheritance by Lu Ping. Then how many top-grade spirit stones does Brother Yuan want to exchange for it? You should know that there are many people here who want this Sky Thunder Fantastic Stone. Although the top-grade spirit stone is precious, the supply of the Phantom Palace has increased recently. I believe that everyone here has a few in their hands. Another Dharma adept said. At this time, Lu Ping was also determined to get this Sky Thunder Fantastic Stone. As for the top-grade spirit stones, what Lu Ping did not lack now was the top-grade spirit stones. After handing over the hundreds of top-grade spirit stones that had previously belonged to Jinling to Tiankong Laozu for safekeeping, Lu Ping now had more than 1,000 top-grade spirit stones on him. Even a large sect's share of the giant spirit stone mine on the Phantom Island was probably less than this. In the core space, the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash began to jump up and down the moment the Sky Thunder Fantastic Stone was taken out. Finally, it was pressed down by the Dharma power of the dragon, and then it calmed down. Yuan Feixiang smiled and said, "The reason why I took out this Sky Thunder Fantastic Stone is that in this dangerous time, I hope that this stone can help one of you to master a great thunder technique. It can also be used to defend against Mara's attack and increase our strength. In this case, this stone will be priced at 7 top-grade spirit stones." As soon as Yuan Feixiang called out the price, many of the adepts present shook their heads and gave up. Most of these adepts were individual cultivators, or people from the 25 medium-sized sects, or the 12 demon tribes. They might be able to take out 7 top-grade spirit stones, but after that, they would not have much left. To be honest, Yuan Feixiang's asking price was not high. After all, 7 top-grade spirit stones were only the price of a high-grade earth-level spirit item. To exchange it for a great power was not a high price. Alright, based on Brother Yuan's generosity, I will take this Sky Thunder Fantastic Stone for 8 top-grade spirit stones. The one who spoke was a Dharma power adept from the Guangfa sect, a large sect in the South Sea. Brother Yu, don't you think it's too easy to exchange for this strange stone with only 8 spirit stones? It just so happens that I'm also quite interested in this strange stone. I'll take all 9. The one who spoke was a 3rd-generation disciple from the Talisman sect, another large sect in the South Sea. With the treasures that Yuan Feixiang had displayed at the beginning, it was destined that the treasures that the adepts brought out at this trade fair would not be inferior. Sure enough, the adepts who came up to the stage to trade next all displayed extremely precious treasures. Even someone as experienced as Lu Ping felt that it was an eye-opener. In particular, the adepts from the East Sea Demon clan displayed even more precious treasures. Many of them were even more precious than Lu Ping had ever heard of. Chapter 1072. Because Yuan Fei had used the Heavenly Thunder Wondrous Stone as a stepping stone, the quality of this trade fair was greatly improved. The following cultivators went on stage one after another, and although the treasures they displayed were not as good as the Heavenly Thunder Wondrous Stone, they were not too far off. As for the methods of exchange, there were even more diverse. Some auctioned directly with top-grade spirit stones, some bartered, and some used both. There were even auctions that used anonymous methods. Apart from the 2 parties involved, no one else knew what was being exchanged. Lu Ping had also found several items that interested him in the past few trades. He had tried to bid or barter for them, but in the end, the bids were either too high or the items he tried to trade weren't of interest to the other traders. Fortunately, although these treasures were tempting, they were not what Lu Ping urgently needed. Although it was a pity that he could not bid for them, it was just a pity. A piece of strange coral gold ore, weighing 23 kilograms, pure in quality, can be exchanged for 5 portions of Blood Demon Luo level spiritual essence. Of course, if fellow Taoists like this item, you can also increase the price, and naturally, the highest bidder will obtain it. A female cultivator from the demon clan, dressed in clothes that looked like seaweed, placed a piece of alternating yellow and blue coral on the display stand. This person was from the bright-colored Snake clan, one of the 12 clans of the East Sea. They were one of the most tyrannical forces among the 12 clans. Lu Ping was taken aback when he heard about the mutated coral metal. He had heard about the mutated coral metal from Chun Lian before. It was an extremely rare spiritual material, especially when used to forge some water-attributed mystic treasures. It could greatly enhance the quality of the mystic treasure. When Lu Ping obtained it in the North Sea, he had given Chun Lian 24 corals that contained various top-grade spiritual materials, and one of them contained mutated coral gold. When Lu Ping was upgrading the Aquaslite sword, Chun Lian had refined a very small amount of exotic coral gold from the 24 corals into the Aquaslite sword. That was how the Aquaslite sword was upgraded to a spirit-nurturing level magic treasure. Chun Lian had once told Lu Ping that exotic coral gold was a special spiritual material that could be used to upgrade a spirit-nurturing treasure to a spirit treasure. Unfortunately, it was extremely rare in the cultivation world. If Lu Ping had not obtained a companion spirit treasure with an invisibility effect, which allowed the water spirit sword to reach the level of a top spirit-nurturing treasure that could attract a thunder tribulation, Lu Ping would have searched for it to upgrade the water spirit sword. Lu Tianping thought for a while and said, "Normally, one portion of the blood azura's essence of origin can be used to make 2 cauldrons of essence refining pills for cultivation and 5 cauldrons of essence condensing pills to quickly recover one's vital energy. According to the 50% success rate, one portion of the blood azura's essence of origin can be used to make 10 essence refining pills or 25 essence condensing pills. What do you think, fellow Hua?" The smile on Hua Die's face grew wider and she said, "Not bad, not bad. Lu Daoyu is indeed an alchemy grandmaster. I admire you. If Lu Daoyu offers a higher price than fellow Qin, I will make the decision to trade this coral rare gold with Brother Lu." Her tone was slightly impatient, causing the other cultivators in the pavilion to look at her and criticize her secretly. Some of the Dharma adepts even had ugly expressions on their faces. Seeing this, Chu Haitian, who was at the side, hurriedly advised in a low voice, "Brother Lu, your estimate is too high. Normally, one portion of origin of essence is exchanged from an alchemy grandmaster with a 40% success rate. If you offer a 50% success rate, not only will your sect suffer a great loss, you might even become the enemy of the many alchemy grandmasters on the 5 islands of illusionary spirits." Lu Ping was slightly stunned. Only then did he realize that those cultivators with ugly expressions were alchemy grandmasters from his sect, who had come to the 5 islands of illusionary spirits. Thus he said, "Fellow Hua, you must be joking. My estimate of 50% success rate is already higher than the publicly accepted estimate of the alchemy grandmasters on the 5 islands of illusionary spirits. How can I offer a price higher than fellow Qin? How about this? If fellow Qin offers 6 portions of origin of essence and 3 pieces of top-grade spirit stones, I will offer 6 bottles of essence refining pills and 3 pieces of top-grade spirit stones. How about that?" As soon as Lu Ping said this, it was clear that the 50% success rate was based on his own sect's estimation and had nothing to do with the exchange rate for elixirs on the 5 islands of illusionary spirits. Many of the cultivators in the pavilion immediately relaxed. Seeing that a great bargain had slipped out of her hands, Hua Jie could not help but glare at Chu Haitian, who had reminded Lu Ping. Then, she smiled at Qin Shijun and said, "Fellow Qin, do you still want to bid?" Qin Shijun smiled bitterly and said, "If fellow Hua uses spirit stones as the price, then I have the confidence to compete with Brother Lu. But if you use elixirs as the price, then forget it." This was not to say that Qin Shijun's wealth was not as good as Lu Ping's. He was the first direct disciple of the Crystal Palace, a mid-Dharma adept. If he said that his wealth was not enough to compete with Lu Ping, even Lu Ping himself would not believe it. It was just that if he used Lu Ping's method of calculation, Qin Shijun would be at too much of a disadvantage and could only give up 6 bottles of elixirs and 3 top-grade spirit stones. This piece of rare coral gold was finally in Lu Ping's hands. Lu Ping secretly estimated that if he used the spirit fire smelting purification technique to purify this, or he might even be able to extract 2 or 3 taels of rare coral gold from it. This way, it would be completely enough to improve the quality of the thin water-flowing sword. After the trade fair, he might have to trouble Rongxi Laozu of the Huai sect. As long as the quality of the thin water-flowing sword was improved, the possibility of it surviving the thunder calamity and becoming a spirit treasure would increase greatly. Chapter 1073. In the world of cultivation, except for the 6 holy lands, almost all the large sects had risen during Mara's catastrophe and gradually accumulated a rich heritage and survived to this day. In the long history of the cultivation world, most of the sects that had perished were also because they did not handle the great calamity of Mara properly. Under the attack of Mara, they were either directly destroyed or suffered great damage to their vitality, gradually declining until they perished. Or they were struggling at death's door, clinging to the old and conservative. Therefore, whenever Mara's catastrophe came, although it was a disaster for the entire world of cultivation, for many sects, it was also an opportunity to break the old balance, take advantage of the situation, and reshuffle the cards to establish a new structure. And one of the most direct manifestations of this opportunity was the original essence after Mara's death, as well as the accompanying instruments, magic treasures, and even spirit treasures that were left behind. The original essence could replace spirit herbs, and in the hands of alchemists, it could be refined into elixirs that could enhance cultivation. Moreover, the effect was excellent, and the supply was far more abundant than spirit herbs. As long as one had the courage to risk life and death to kill Mara. As for the accompanying instruments, magic treasures, spirit treasures, and so on, although most of them would also disappear after Mara's death, there would always be some that were lucky enough to survive. When the number of Mara's deaths increased, these small probability events could often bring about a considerable number of drops. Therefore, when Mara's catastrophe came, it was often an excellent opportunity for the various sects to have sufficient resources for cultivation. Their cultivation would advance by leaps and bounds, and the number of magic treasures and spirit treasures would increase explosively. During this time, Lu Ping had collected a lot of original essence through the Linglong wine cauldron, and in the process of refining elixirs for others, he had also accumulated a lot. However, after deducting the supply for his own cultivation and the supply for the sect's disciples, there was not much left after the 6 bottles of Dharma Great Essence refining elixirs were sold. However, because of Lu Ping's bid for the rare coral gold this time, it reminded many cultivators. Therefore, in the next few transactions, the Dharma Great Essence refining elixirs, refined with the original essence of Mara's blood, became the equivalent of the top-grade spirit stone. The trade fair continued. Many of the cultivators on the platform displayed more than just one item. Additionally, the cultivators who had already gone on the platform could also go on stage to display their items again.